What's the scariest word in the whole of computing? It might be caching. It might be null pointer exception. Is that a word? That's one word. I'm going to say that's one word. Null pointer exception is a very scary word. But I think possibly one of the scariest words is migration. That process of moving the whole company from one system to another without falling off the tightrope and dying. In this episode of the Streaming Audio podcast, I'm joined by Dima K, who has been very carefully and very successfully migrating the online grocery store Picnic from AWS Kinesis to Confluent Cloud. We talk about the hows and whys of that transformation and what's next for the future of their business. But before we start, let me tell you that the Streaming Audio podcast is brought to you by Confluent Developer, which is our site that teaches you everything we know about Apache Kafka. From how to start it running and write your first app, all the way up to the realities of architecting production systems at scale. Check it out at developer.confluent.io. And if you want to take one of our hands-on courses you'll find there, you can easily get Kafka running using Confluent Cloud. Sign up with the code podcast100 and we'll give you $100 of extra free credit to get you started. And with that, I'm your host, Chris Jenkins. This is Streaming Audio. Let's get into it. My guest today is Dima K, who's the technical lead at Picnic, a company over in Amsterdam that I'm hoping to visit soon, actually. Dima, welcome to the show.
Yes, hello everyone. Very pleased to be there and talk today with you about our migration from AWS Kinesis to Confluent Cloud.
That must have been a long journey. Before we get started, tell everyone what Picnic does. What's the actual real-world problem you're trying to solve out there?
Yeah, sure. So Picnic is online grocery supermarket, and we are striving for best-in-class delivery to all families in Netherlands, France, Germany, and we are very keen on sustainability. All our vehicles are electrical, we strive for the greenest process possible, and at the same time we are ensuring that our customers have lowest price guarantee and can pick up groceries delivered to their home at the time really suitable for them. This is what we're doing.
Right. And you're entirely online. There are no physical shops. It's all
delivery.
No,
that's completely online indeed.
Right, so very tech-heavy company,
yes,
I imagine.
Yeah.
So how long have you been working there, by the way?
I've been working here for around 1 year and 8 months or something like this.
Okay, that's fairly long in internet years.
Yes, indeed.
So you came in presumably. Actually, tell me before we get into that. Tell me where event streaming fits into your particular business.
Yeah, so in Picnic, we are trying to be very, very data-driven companies and make all our decisions based on what is going on in the real world and how our customers are using our applications, how our processes are running in data warehouses during distribution computation, during picking in the in the warehouse itself. So we are collecting events on everything that is happening within the company. For instance, when the new stocks arrive to the warehouse, we automatically receive events on it, and then our analysts can analyze it. We also analyze what people see in the applications, how they click and interact with it. For the purpose to improve usability of application, to see if something went wrong and we can improve it. We also do similar things with application for our delivery people who are running on electrical vehicles across the country to not only help them, but for instance, to also drive safer driving practices. Let's call it like that. So,
okay.
Yeah, we very much, for safety, want to avoid any incidents on the road or anything bad happens. So we promote safe techniques and track it.
So it's interesting. I really find it interesting when a system crosses like all those different domains, from logistics to UX to driving safety.
Yeah.
That's a novel one to me. So you came into this company and they were already an event streaming data first company, I assume, and you're using Kinesis, right? AWS Kinesis.
Yes, indeed. At first place, we were using AWS Kinesis, and the system was set up long ago before I arrived into company, maybe like almost from the beginning of it.
Okay. And so so I know it changed. So what was your experience of that in the early days, and what made you think something has to change here?
Yeah, sure. So first, when I arrived, it seems to be like, a bit fine in most of the places, but when we started to scale up and Picnic is growing rapidly, and there is even more and more demand on what should we track, how we should analyze, how we want to see analytics platform within the company, we started to face lots of issues with Kinesis and limitations, unfortunately. So one of the major ones is that Kinesis allows to keep data for 1 week within the stream, which seems to be fine in most of the cases. But in our situations, long term, first of all, we want to do in-stream data analysis. And sometimes, you need lots of data from the past to draw a decision on what is going on now or in future. And this is, of course, one of the limitations. And also, it doesn't help with safety nets. So sometimes we see a few notorious incidents within our platform, which sometimes, happens. And if we could keep data for more than 1 week, we indeed would avoid lots of manual labor to recover, because we strive for zero data loss in all situations. So not a single event can be lost. Of course, safety nets are really crucial for us.
Yeah, that seems fair to me.
One more thing which was problematic is that there is not much ecosystem, unfortunately, around Kinesis, because when we want to do something, we almost always have to develop it ourselves, and there is no lots of open source technologies around Kinesis outside from what AWS provide, which...
Oh, really? Okay.
In my opinion, it's really not that thriving ecosystem as, like, to say with Kafka, for example. So
what kind of tools are we talking about? What kind of things did you need to build yourself?
Yeah. First of all, we really wanted something like Apache Kafka Connect, that there is already things in place to grab data from one place and move it to stream and then to the other side. Because we don't want to develop many connectors ourselves. Our team is really small at the moment, and we cannot afford huge development burden long term to maintain lots of components ourselves. This is one thing. Another thing that we would really love to see on top of Kinesis is, for example, things like ksqlDB, because there is definitely more drive for in-stream data analysis in foreseeable future in Picnic, and we don't want really to develop something like ksqlDB on our own. It would require, I guess, too much effort from even our company.
As much fun as it would be to write SQL from scratch as a hobby project, you probably don't want to do it at work to take it into production. Out of interest, which language or languages are you mostly writing this stuff in at Picnic?
In Picnic, Java is the primary language, and nowadays Python is also first-class citizen language. Yeah, so this is the primary language for development on the backend.
Okay, so you definitely have access to Kafka streams, but there's still that. I find it quite nice in KSQL. You've got this kind of, it's like Kafka streams you can deploy in seconds and play with really quickly and easily.
Yeah, and the great thing about KSQL is that since it's just a plain SQL, you can give access to analysts, and all our analysts know how to write SQL. This is what we are striving for. So business analysts should know how to do it. And in that case, they can also play themselves with data in stream. That's why it's really important for us to have SQL-like tooling.
Yeah. In my career, I've not always met business analysts that know SQL, but when they do, it's just like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yes, that's right.
So, okay, what was that? So, add all that up, but it's still a big job to say we need to migrate to a different event streaming platform. Take me through that point when you said we got to bite the bullet.
Yeah, sure. So that's of course not the only things which drove us to migration. One of the important thing for us, which we wanted to have, is better monitoring of SLA within our platform. Since I has already said we strive for zero data loss, but we also strive that all events are delivered within 15 minutes to the data warehouse, which is not, very complicated SLA sometimes, but still we need to track it. And we found that monitoring KPI at AWS Kinesis is not that suitable if you don't use CloudWatch, but CloudWatch is not truly adapted within Picnic because we're using Prometheus, for example, for monitoring, which is getting a bit complicated. And it's really hard to see where your consumers in the streams, because these positions, you need to go to DynamoDB and somehow figure out how to decode all these consumer positions in DynamoDB, which is not very convenient. And with Kafka, it's like a snap. You get your consumer positions instantly and can monitor them. It's very easy to do and very suitable. And besides, Confluent Cloud provides great monitoring API, which nowadays automatically provide you endpoint to export metrics to Prometheus. So we cannot be more happy to do it. So this is definitely one thing on top of it. Another thing is that with Kinesis in particular, we found it a bit hard to scale it horizontally. First of all, rules on shard scaling is a bit obscure, let me be honest, and common practice is not sometimes matching to what AWS support told us, which is quite not comfortable sometimes. And we really wanted to have, seamless horizontal scaling when we can just tell, okay, consumers or producers scale horizontally, distribute across yourself all shards, partitions, or whatever you have in your hands, and don't let me bother about manual assignment or manual things to do. And with Kinesis, we would need to develop something like, okay, your app, we need to redistribute shards across different consumers, which is not so easy to do.
Oh, because I don't know a huge amount about AWS Kinesis. It doesn't have that kind of automatic rebalancing.
At least when we were working with it, we haven't managed to achieve that, especially to go with Java Spring Framework. So since we are using Java and Spring Framework, we would really love that Spring, for instance, can do it for us, but we haven't managed to achieve. So that's why it also become sort of problem, and vertical scaling, have its own limits.
Okay, yeah, okay. So it's funny, isn't it? How often it's like not the pure technology itself that makes the difference. It's like the integration with other things and the day-to-day maintenance of it that's more important than the core.
Yeah, that's totally right. That's why I also has already mentioned the ecosystem, that technologies around this core should give you also lots of value, provide like easy integration, be always up to date, and do what you want them to do. And this wasn't always the case with AWS Kinesis.
Okay. So, putting on your project management hat, okay, you've decided to move to Confluent Cloud, right? How do you actually tackle that? Because that's a project that, in the best of intentions, can still go wrong. How did you make a success of it?
Oh, that's a good story to tell. So we start with the where should we go from AWS Kinesis? Because that's, you had one technology, but how do you choose where to go? Seems like there is lots of platforms which seems to do the same. And in Picnic, we have what's called technical radars. So we define all technologies we want to use or around the markets and seems feasible for Picnic on this special tech radar where we track them, we register, and then we start the process of, okay, we need to do assessment of this technology, like just reading the documents in community, what is going on, when we do trial, and only then we adapt the technology. And this is collective decision of people within company who can participate in discussions around the technology itself, how suitable it is, and all things around it. So when we originally pick up also Pulsar, for instance, and looked into Pulsar and Kafka, and after some elaboration over the technologies, Kafka is definitely a winner for us because of thriving, flourishing community and much more mature ecosystem, to our opinion. So, okay, the selection process is done, but on the next stage in Picnic, we really don't want to run many things ourselves if there is a cloud option.
Yeah.
Because
you've got a small team, right?
Yeah, well, nowadays we are just including product owner, me, and developers. It's 4 people, but back in the times it was 4. But back in the times when we started the migration, we were just 3 of us, so it's not really much.
Gee, I'm surprised. I mean, if you said you're covering the Netherlands, France, and Germany.
Yeah.
With a heavily data-driven business, and there are 4 of you.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see why you're not managing too much in-house.
So, yeah, and to not manage in-house, we need a cloud provider, and that's the next stage. Who should we go? If we decided to go with Kafka, and we elaborated again across different providers like MSK, Confluent Cloud, and a few others, and we decided to go with Confluent Cloud for, first of all, because Confluent Cloud is really feature-rich. We have managed connectors. We don't need to keep that in mind. We have 0 burden maintenance, like it's just running. I don't need to upgrade anything. I can just deploy my things, don't care about it. There is an API through which I can automate, and of course monitoring API, which is really suitable for us. So this was like almost completely easy decision for us to go for Confluent Cloud in this situation.
Okay.
So, and then we decided to go with Confluent Cloud. So, okay, we then need to run probably a few POCs with few technologies we have in hands to see that things will be running smoothly, and we don't want to find something bad in production, exploding, and giving us sleepless nights. So
start with a pilot, right?
Yes, we decided to do quite an extensive pilot running production-like things in it. So we can assess costs, we can assess how our technology integrates, because we also use, for instance, Snowplow technology for tracking, which is a sort of, at the same time, framework and technology to do some tracking on customer application side and our delivery application. And it took us a bit to play with Kafka connect Snowplow to all things, run production-like workload to see how performance are. Is there anything bad with costs or something not going right? And once, of course, we are done with POC, it's not the end of the story. Now you need to move away to the next level, to Confluent Cloud.
Yeah, so before we get off that, so the proof of concept, was that an existing use case that you sort of ran in parallel, or was that like a new project you took on and tried?
We ran existing case in parallel to compare all the things. And this is really important also for production environment because we were running for quite a while two systems in parallel. So we had Kinesis in parallel to Confluent Cloud while we were doing migration to Confluent Cloud. And I think this is a good approach for such large scale migrations because first of all, you don't need to rush with migration. Yes, you may be spending more, but the most important, and what I always think about our analytics platform, we are as good as we are stable and as good as we have zero data loss. Because this is what the most crucial. If data are bad, like who will use it? It's not suitable for anyone. Yeah. That's why we decided to run two systems in parallel and set up great acceptance criteria on that. Yeah, there should be no data loss when we compare two systems. There should be no performance degradation. And of course, when you're migrating, you're still quite new to the technology. And of course, you might misconfigure something or might do something not so good and set up too few Kafka partitions. That's why I cannot scale to the right level. And that's why we started to do health checks and sanity checks on the database level to compare two streams, see, okay, we are not missing anything. Confluent Cloud setup is now working better than Kinesis in terms of performance. We avoided much more data loss, so we are good. We can move. And we did that separately for customer upside because this is a quite separate stream from what happening on internal systems like warehouse and delivery, picking, logistic, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And we started to move things one by one. And when finally it's over, of course, you also see just for a while when even you feel like, okay, we are good, nothing is failing, just give it a bit more time to make sure that you haven't missed anything. Indeed, it was running stably yesterday and today and tomorrow when yes, for sure you're good to migrate. Because sometimes I saw things happen in our pipeline, but yeah, we thought we are good, but when it snapped and in 2 days something went badly, so you need to restart it.
So you really took your time de-risking this?
Yes, we really took lots of our times de-risking, and from pilot step to the actual final cut on migration, it took us half a year to make things stable, to ensure everything runs smoothly and everybody is happy. And this is not involvement only on our side as analytics platform. It also took great effort from the data warehouse team because they actually need to use this data, but format is changing a bit. We need to set up new set of tables. We need to propagate this metrics. So this is a huge involvement from their side. We also needed support, a lot of it from our infrastructure team, which helped us set up some common things in Picnic infrastructure, decommission all Kinesis setup. So yeah, this is lots of moving parts and lots of collaboration with our teams to make things happen. It's not like single team process.
Right, yeah. How did they feel about it by the time you'd switched over?
I feel so great because finally we got things over. We don't need to worry about two systems. We don't need to pay twice for things, which is of course great. Yeah.
It's worth paying for a while to take the risk out of it, but you don't want to do that forever.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So when was that? You say it took about 6 months to do. How long ago did you reach that point? How long have you been just Confluent Cloud?
That's a good point. So for our warehousing systems and all internal systems, what we call, so everything that is not customer-facing systems, we reached this point in January. So it's really recently. We did the final cut.
So that's about a month and a half ago, time of recording.
Yeah, I guess so. Something just like a month. For our customer facing part, we are running all data through Kafka as of last week. This was the final cut because
crikey.
It was the stream from customer side is an order of magnitude bigger than from internal system. So it's 45 millions of events per day, and for internal systems it's like almost 5 or 4 millions of events per day. Which is
that because you're capturing a lot more fine-grained user interaction stuff?
Yes, and of course, Picnic is growing. There are more customers, so they produce more events long term. Yeah, this is great, but it also means that you need to take much more care about the setup and make it stable, ensure that analysts are happy and everything runs smoothly. So yeah, at the moment we only left a few pieces to demolish from our old setup, but that's the last part to do.
So what else, apart from demolishing other things, what has this opened up new ideas, new plans for going forward? Or
yeah, it opened up, Confluent Cloud opened up for us many new paths to go this year. At the moment, we are running new pilot on Confluent Cloud only for our automated fulfillment center. So in Picnic, we have just fulfillment center, which are sort of big distribution centers and smaller local hubs across the country, from which we actually do deliveries. And fulfillment center, a normal one, is just like lots of deliveries, quite a lot of manual work from our amazing Picnic team. And we wanted to automate it to a greater extent. And we built from scratch a fully automated warehousing system where there are lots of robots moving totes with products and do the deliveries. And this is amazing. I can say the most brightful project I saw in my life, how it works and how it was built. But we also need to deliver data from it to our system. And you can imagine that robotic systems produce lots of events constantly. Conveyors are moving, something is speaking, something is going on, temperature here, different zones and things like that.
Something's gone wrong there, and
yeah, and that's why we're building, for instance, a system to capture events from a transport system in this automated fulfillment center, and we are doing it with Debizium, with Confluent Cloud only, and at the moment we are on the verge of final cutover for trial process, but we are everything looks good, we can move forward and start to think about production setup. So this, of course, one of the opportunities that we got with Confluent Cloud. Another thing is that we really want to try ksqlDB long term, as I already mentioned. There are a few use cases already in the company. I can imagine, for instance, we can use it to detect malicious behavior within events for security reasons. Because if someone is
what kind of malicious behavior would you expect?
For instance, if hackers take control of someone's phone or someone's application, you need to detect this to protect your customers. And of course, it means that something you highlight this in the data, like someone changing too frequently payment details or delivery address or things like that. So of course you can spot it and notify respective team to, something going on, let's take care of it. This is of course an early ideation phase, but it wouldn't be even possible to ideate previously for us without Confluent Cloud.
It's one of those use cases that's like, actually figuring out what the logic isn't that hard, but implementing it can be easy or a real pain depending on the technology, right?
Yeah, that's totally right, because ideation is always possible to do, but if you cannot implement that thing, then there is no point in ideation.
That's the trick. Yeah. I must admit, I thought when you first said malicious events, you were talking about the robots going rogue.
Well, hopefully this will never be the case. But
I'm reading too much sci-fi, clearly.
We can still detect something going wrong, for instance, in automated fulfillment center by similar analysis. So this idea and approach can be implemented in many places.
So does this mean that you're You said your customers generate more events than your internal systems, but presumably the robots now are going to catch up, and you'll have two towers of events to work
That's
with.
indeed right, because automated fulfillment center will be the events from it will be almost as big as events from customers. So this is why we also need a great cloud solution to run. Because as you can see, when more projects comes in, the data are growing not like 10% per month or just 50, but it doubled or tripled in some scenarios. So indeed, you definitely need a good cloud solution to tackle this problem.
Yeah. And are you finding that it's actually happening that other departments are dipping in with KSQL and running their own private analyses, or is that still a thing you're teaching them about?
They are not running yet, to be honest, but we're planning to do more talks on that and introduce this technology to our machine learning team, to our data analyst team. So this is indeed just things are happening in the company. So not yet, but I can definitely foresee it in the future.
Yeah. It's like, again, it's not just the core technology, it's the integration, it's the dissemination of knowledge, understanding what's possible, right?
Yes, that's totally true. And of
I
course,
think we
support.
sometimes lose sight of that in the technical world. And support, yeah. It's just this whole big package that we'd love to believe it's just programming, but it's a big ball of life.
Yes,
landing on
that's
us.
totally right. Because if you don't have great support for your business, like for instance for your streams and platforms, it's really hard for developers, for analysts, and for everyone to solve the problems. And it means you will be always getting behind. And with Confluent, of course, you get it. You get support. People are always there. You can ask them all the questions, not only on Confluent Cloud, but on Kafka, on something close to it, on similar technologies which uses Kafka, and they're always replying and trying to solve your problem. We found this as an amazing improvements in our support that we had. So yeah, don't forget about support. This is really crucial.
Yeah. So I believe we're going to meet up in person in Amsterdam next month at the time of recording. Is there any chance I can get a tour of the robot factory?
I would be very much pleased to provide you such a tours, and definitely will ask around if we can achieve it. But I'm very much looking forward to our meetup, which we plan in March, so we can share with more people in Netherlands what is going on and why should we also think about Confluent Cloud and such technologies like Kafka.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I will see you then, but for now, thank you very much for joining us, Dima. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much too. The pleasure is totally mine.
And with that, we leave Dima to manage his fleet of robots. That sounds like fun. Well, they are hiring, so if you fancy being the 5th person on that team, check the show notes. We'll put in a link to their jobs page. Now, if you're piloting, trialing, or looking to put Kafka into production, then let me tell you that you can easily get started with Confluent Cloud by going to confluent.cloud. And if you register with the code podcast100, you'll get $100 of extra free credit to explore with. Meanwhile, if you want to learn more about Confluent Cloud, Kafka, or event streaming in general, head on over to developer.confluent.io, where we'll teach you everything we know about making a success of event-driven architectures. If you have any questions or comments about today's show, we'd love for you to get in touch. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a comment box and thumbs to click. Spotify has stars, and it's the 5th one on the right that you're looking for. And my Twitter handle is always in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, it just remains for me to thank Dima Kalashnikov for joining us and you for listening. I've been your host, Chris Jenkins, and we'll catch you next time.